Hello there, welcome to Saints Live. I'm Kenzie Benali.
And I'm Steve Forbes.
Well, the stage is set here at St Mary's Stadium for an early afternoon kickoff as we welcome high-flying Arsenal. Southampton are looking to make it consecutive Premier League victories for the first time since February, whilst Arsenal are looking to extend that lead over Manchester City. It should be a good one today, Steve, and we are in very good company because joining us this afternoon is former Saints captain Dean Hammond and NBC's lead soccer writer Joe Prince-Wright. It's good to see you guys and great to have you here in person, Joe.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This is really exciting. I mean, it's a big game and Dean's turned up, so all the big guns are here, right?
I'm not sure about that, Joe. You're too kind to me, but no, you're right. It's great to be here. Always brilliant to be at St Mary's and looking forward to a brilliant game this afternoon.
Great stuff. Lovely to see you guys. Now, the team news will be coming out in around 15 minutes' time. Make sure as well to get your comments in via however you're watching across our social media channels. Now, we know that Kyle Walker-Peters won't be playing. He picked up a hamstring injury against Bournemouth. Also, Ainsley Maitland-Niles is ineligible to play against his parent club. Armel Bella-Kotchap and Tino Livramento are still injured. And Romeo Lavia, although he's returned to training, isn't expected to be part of the squad today. We can see the team turning up to St Mary's a little earlier on there. So, Dean, we know there's going to be at least two changes, Kyle Walker-Peters and Ainsley Maitland-Niles. Do you think there's going to be any others today?
Potentially, Steve. I think the players are obviously coming off a brilliant performance and more importantly a brilliant result, which was much needed. Unfortunately, injuries happen in football, and that's why managers bang on about all the time. They need big squads, they need selection headaches really. So players will get an opportunity now, and I think there may be a change of shape as well just because of the injuries and the lack of the full-back position at right back. I think Gineppo will come in there and play as a wing-back really, which means I think Lianco will come in and there'll be three centre-halves. Whether that will be a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3 or a 3-4-5-1 sort of thing, it'll be an interesting because you're playing against such a brilliant Arsenal team. I could also see Stuart Armstrong maybe coming into the team. I think he was very, very good when he came on during the week, just in terms of his game management with possession of the ball, which will be needed at times today. You can't always just defend against the bigger teams. You need to be brave on occasions and be very good in possession and try and create something. And it'll be interesting to see who partners Che Adams, whether he does have a partner or someone just plays just behind him, whether that would be Aribo, whether it would be Adam Armstrong, who I think has been excellent of late in terms of his work rate for the team. So it will be very interesting to see how Ralph approaches this game and how he adapts. But I think there will be a change of shape, not necessarily because he wants to, but I think it will be forced upon him because of the injuries. So I'm looking forward to seeing the team selection and how they approach the game against a brilliant Arsenal team this afternoon.
Indeed, and of course we did see some players arriving at St Mary's earlier on. A few of those included was Lewis Payne and Ryan Finnegan, so interesting to see if those youngsters feature today. But how do you expect Saints to line up today, Joe?
Kenzie, I think similar to what Dean said, I expect Moussa Gineppo to come in. He did so well in the wing-back positions on the left earlier in the season. A bit more natural for him to play on the right, so with Walker-Peters out, if Saints do go to a back three, then that would make a lot of sense. I'm kind of in two minds as a Saints fan whether they sit back and follow that blueprint from last season when they beat Arsenal at home, which I know we're going to talk about a lot. That was, backs against the wall, and it's a little bit more difficult, I think, to do it against Arsenal this season. They have more quality and a little bit of a different proposition. So I'd almost expect or hope maybe Saints could have more of an impact in this game, actually playing the 4-2-2-2 and being brave, because I don't think any Saints fan here is turning up today expecting a win, and they might catch Arsenal off guard a little bit, because Arsenal last week they were lucky to get the win at Leeds. Leeds are a high pressing team, high energy, so that might be a way for Saints to actually surprise them today. But I think probably given the success of last season, going to a back three and then a 3-5-1-1 and having someone like Al Yunusi or Aribo or Armstrong just in behind the brilliant Che Adams. We saw how well he led the line against Bournemouth. That's probably the way to go to keep in the game and then get to half-time or 60-minute mark 0-0 or level and then see what happens from there.
Well, Southampton did get back to winning ways on Wednesday night with a 1-0 win over Bournemouth. Let's have a look at the highlights of that now.
Even if it's not a derby to Saints fans, boy, do they need their team to play like it's a derby, Joe Tesson, because Saints need a win here tonight. He's got it back, Elyounoussi. He's on the edge of the D. He's running across the penalty area from right to left. He's got support from Perrault. Early cross, fizzed in, and it's 1-0 to Saints. And Shay Adams has headed Southampton into the lead at the Vitality Stadium. It's only the second game he's scored in this season in the Premier League. Whipped into the penalty area. Not the best from Lewis Cook. Headed away. Adam Smith chucks it back in. There's height in there. Billing on the spin. Fantastic save for Zunu, but the flag goes up anyway. Lewis Cook, little clever ball inside to Phil Billing, 25 yards out, time to shoot, and it's pushed away by Bazunu, 2 hands to his right, and behind for a Bournemouth corner. Lewis Cook's going to whip it in, right-footed, as plenty of fans still taking their seats, getting our way. In it comes, into the heart of the penalty area, and it's headed wide, and that was a chance. Stuart Armstrong has it, edge of the penalty, threads it through to Perrault. Perrault pulls it back to Adams. His shot is blocked, comes out for Elyounoussi, and he horribly screws it off the outside of his boot. Tavernier with his left foot from that right-hand side will swing this in under the crossbar. Bazunu got a touch, and he didn't get enough of a touch. It was put back by Cook into the box, and somehow Saints have scrambled it away, and Lewis Cook has it back on this left wing. The Saints fans are starting to believe in the 3rd minute of stoppage time. They lead by a goal. Lianco plays it long. Genepo's going to pick it up. Genepo on his left foot. Oh, he's hit it straight at the goalkeeper, and Shay Adams is furious with him for not passing it. But we are seconds away.
The game should be over now, Adam. How much time have we played?
It's not over yet. And Saints, as the whistle goes to John Brooks' mouth, have a win. Their first in 6 games. Their first away clean sheet since October last year, and a huge night for Southampton.
Well, that was certainly a good night, wasn't it? And Dean, Joe was speaking about Roman Perrault before that game against Bournemouth. He, of course, got the assist on Wednesday and showed so much endeavour, didn't he, down that left-hand side. What did you make of his performance and that intent to get forward?
Really tenacious, and I'm really enjoying him as a player at the moment and watching him play. He looks like he would be a brilliant professional, someone who works very hard at his game, and he's getting a consistent run in the team now, and he can do it all really as a left back. I would trust him as a defender in one-on-one situations, but then going forward as well, he's very, very fit. You know, the condition he's in to be able to make those runs consistently. But I think he's picking his times now as well. He's not just going every time. The cross for the goal was brilliant. And I love seeing that from wingers and fullbacks, playing it early and first time, because then strikers can kind of have instinctive movement off that and time their moving better, which Shay did for the goal. And then we're seeing he almost got another assist for Shay, where he makes that run again, and that's late on in the game, and that's what I talk about, his fitness. But he's been brilliant. You know, his goal against West Ham, fully deserved. I think he's understanding what the manager wants from him now. I think the players respect him now and trust him, which is always important when you come into a football club. You have to earn the respect of the players, and I think he's done that now. And he just looks like an all-round good footballer. And in that left back position, I think it's his really. He can cement that, and if he can stay injury-free, which he's picked up a few injuries, he can play a lot of games this season, and he's been very, very good. Can he add a bit more quality to his crosses at times? Yes, 100%, but I think that will come, and with him getting assists and scoring goals, that would just breed confidence. And when you're confident as a player, you want to get in those positions more often, you want to get forward more often, and it's been brilliant to see.
Now, Joe, we know that Ainsley Maitland-Niles won't be playing today, so we expect Ibrahima Diallo to start the game. What have you made to his time in a Saints shirt so far, and what can he do to actually nail down a starting berth?
Firstly, on Perrault, great song by the fans, so that's very important as well. So I'm looking forward to singing that today. On Diallo, I think he's still pretty young, right? He's 23 years old. It seems like he's been here for quite a while now. With him, consistency, Steve, it's all about that. I think we saw him put in a great display against Chelsea in that big win here earlier in the season, and then he never really kicked on from that. I think that's happened to him a few times in his Saints career, where he's just put in a mammoth display. We're seeing here shutting down chances, being really good on the ball, just being really calm. But then at other times, I think where he has to take the next step is being better on the ball when he has it. We've seen some bad giveaways over the years, and just understanding when to give a simple pass or when to go long. And he's really good in these little tight situations, in the hustle and bustle of midfield, turning, twisting, linking up play. But I think he just needs a consistent run of games, and he never really has had that, you know, of Romeo being here last season, Romeo Lavia this season. So I think he's a confidence player, and hopefully today is the start of a good run for him, because, you know, Dean will tell you as a midfielder, you need to just play in partnerships and know people around you, what they're going to do game in, game out. I don't think he's ever really had that at Saints.
No, and I was going to say that, Joe, and I think with Diallo, I think what I'd want to see to him, I want him to, when he's at his best, he plays his natural game. So he doesn't try and hit this 60-yard diagonal. He doesn't try and score a goal from 30 yards. Sometimes you have to accept the player you are, and he's a brilliant player. That breaking up play, fantastic. You know, he wins the ball back really, really quickly. He's got that press, which we know the manager likes, and then he drives from midfield. So he has something different to the other midfield players, and he's got to, I think, understand that there's real value in that, and not try to be something he's not. Because when he plays instinctively, I use that word again, but plays naturally and plays to his attributes, he's brilliant. It's when he tries to do other things and it doesn't quite fit his role, his model, and then he can get caught on the ball and he can give the ball away, and then he doesn't look quite as effective. But when he plays to his natural ability, he can be exceptional. He really can.
And I want to talk about Kyle Walker-Peters now. We've got a comment here on YouTube from St. Paris. They're just saying what a big loss he is, Dean. We spoke about it after the game the other day, didn't we? And obviously since then Ralph has confirmed he will be out for a while. We don't know how long exactly that will be, but just how disappointing is it to lose him in that manner?
Disappointing for himself. It's disappointing for the team because he is so effective. We were just talking about Pero and the role he's playing at the moment. Kyle Walker-Peters does even more, really. He's the outlet for Southampton. Every time we're in an attacking position, we look for him. He can dribble with the ball. I think he can add more assists to his game and more goals, but he gets in some brilliant positions. So he's going to be a real miss because he's kind of cemented that place down, and he will be one of the first names on the team sheets. And he's still a young man, so he's still got improvements to make. But he will be a miss for the team and himself as well. Obviously, I know we're going to speak about it, and Joe's going to talk about the World Cup coming up. Would he have been an outside chance of that? Potentially. But he's a young man, and sometimes I think, if I'm being totally honest, which I want to be, I think his form's been up and down this year. I think he's been brilliant at times, but also times not quite at his best. So sometimes getting an injury can just give that time to rest and review your game and sit on the sidelines and just have a little bit of a think. And I think maybe he probably just needs that. Needs a little bit of a rest, to be honest.
Well, on the subject of the World Cup, we know that Armel Bella-Kotchap would have aspirations to go with Germany, and maybe there would have been an outside chance for Kyle Walker-Peters to go with England too, given their injury concerns, but that's looking very unlikely now.
It's Steve, unfortunately. I think for him, he was pretty much the next man up with, you know, Reece James getting injured, Kyle Walker being a doubt, and we know Gareth Southgate loves a right back, right? So he usually has about 17 in each England squad. So, yeah, very disappointing timing-wise for Carl. And Dean mentioned it there. He has had a bit of an up and down season. And I wondered, you know, he was in the England squad at the end of last season, then was left out kind of over the start of this season. So maybe that was playing on his mind a little bit, and he was maybe trying to do things that didn't come naturally or trying a bit too hard. But we're seeing here capability to score goals and get assists. We know that he can do that. And I have no doubt that when he is back and he's fit, if he keeps progressing the way he has over the last few seasons he's been at Saints, then he will get back in that England squad and he will be right around it. But I think for him as well, in the tournament situation with England, the fact that he can play left back almost as well as he can play right back is a huge bonus for an international manager in that kind of tournament situation. So yeah, it's a disappointing time for any player to get injured. I think if they're right on the cusp of going to the World Cup, and we've seen a lot of that around the Premier League the last few weeks now, nervy moments for players. And I think for Carl, it's just come at a bad time for his England aspirations, but like Dean mentioned, maybe not the worst time for his Saints season, because I think it gives him time to just reset, get back to his best, because he has done some really good games this season, but some of them have dipped as well. So, and he's Mr. Consistent, I think, since he's been at Saints the last few years.
Indeed, we all, of course, here on Saints Live are wishing Carl an extremely speedy recovery. Dean, we don't have too long to talk about this because team news coming away very, very shortly. But Shea Adams got the winner, of course, on Wednesday at Bournemouth. That was actually just his third headed goal at Southampton, which is interesting. Is that something that Southampton should look to exploit more?
I think every team should, because it's going out of the game, the art of heading, really. And Shea's strong in the air, holds the ball up really, really well. I remember his goal away at Tottenham, brilliant header, the header against Bournemouth. but it touches on that relationships I talked about the show previously.
I do have to
No
interrupt
problem,
you.
Steve.
Dean, it always happens to you.
I can't answer quick enough, Steve.
We will come back to
that
it because
was my fault. I shouldn't have asked the question.
Not at all, because we will have to discuss Shay Adams. The team news is in now. We'll bring it to you in just a sec. There is 3 changes from Wednesday night's win over Bournemouth. Lianco, Ibrahima Diallo and Stu Armstrong are in for Carl Walker-Peters, Ainsley Maitland-Niles and indeed Shay Adams. So here is the lineup in full. The Saints starting lineup is Gavin Bazunu, Lianco, Shaletta Sarr, Mo Salisu, Moyeli Yanusi, Ibrahima Diallo and our captain James Ward-Prowse, Roman Perrault, Stuart Armstrong who's in again, Joe Aribo and Adam Armstrong up front. Now there are also some youngsters from the Saints Academy on the bench who could be making their Premier League debuts today. So our subs bench is Alex McCarthy, Juan Larios, Lewis Payne is one of those, played against Cambridge in the EFL Cup and could make his full debut in the Premier League today. Also Musa Gineppo. The other one is Ryan Finnegan, one of our Saints youngsters, Theo Walcott, Sam Adozi, Sekou Mara and indeed Shay Adams starts on the bench today. So Dean, we'll come back to you first. You were talking about Shay. He's not in the starting lineup today. Is that a surprise for you?
Yes, because of his form, but also maybe just it's a sign of how Ralph's going to approach this game, and he thinks maybe Adam Armstrong will be better with his pace on the break. That we may not have that build-up play for Shay to get involved, maybe to come in that number 10 role to hold the ball up, maybe not get the support, but balls over the top for Adam Armstrong to run onto could be effective. And also maybe he's just fatigued and tired because the effort he put in on Wednesday night, I think it was obviously Wednesday against Bournemouth, was fantastic. I think he was exceptional. The way he worked, he was almost like a man possessed, really. Scored the goal, could have got a second, but worked tireless for the team. And maybe the manager thinks he could be a player that we could bring on for the last 30 minutes and have an impact on this game. So I think with Adam Armstrong playing, I think that maybe gives us a sign of how Ralph may approach this. I think Southampton may sit in now, invite the pressure, allow Arsenal to have a lot of possession of the ball, and then we get them opportunities, maybe go long, but long over the top, not into like Shay, for Adam to run onto, stretch the game, and then Southampton can build from there.
Shay Adams has picked up a slight hamstring injury, which is the reason why he's starting on the bench today. Joe, also a really good opportunity for maybe some academy graduates to get their first run out in the Premier League.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Like Dean mentioned there's going to be a lot of fatigue in this squad. You look at people like, Ward-Prowse, and then you look at Perrault and some of the centre-backs. I mean, they went through a heck of a shift against West Ham and then against Bournemouth a few days later. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see them. Obviously, we know that's the ethos of the club, to bring through the young players, and there is a lot of them on the bench there, so there's a lot of opportunities. I'm just trying to figure out, it looks like a back three, would assume, with Lianco coming in, but there's flexibility within that lineup as well to switch to a back four within the game. And the key is here, as I think we saw the blueprint against Arsenal last season, sit back deep, try and hit them on the counter. I think Arsenal aren't that comfortable sometimes being on the ball, and then against Tottenham earlier this season, Harry Kane and Son and others kind of caused them a lot of problems on the counter-attack with Gabriel, Ben White, and obviously there are other centre-backs back there. Saliba's had a great season, but I just think that's maybe a weakness they've seen in Arsenal, being more direct on the counter-attack and using the pace of Adam Armstrong, and then getting Al Yunusi, Stuart Armstrong, Aribo supporting him, and that's the game plan. Let's see how it pans out.
Definitely. Well, Dean, we'll come to you in just a moment to continue that chat on Shay Adams. Before we do, let's hear what the Saints fans are sending in on social media. Lynn Edwards, hello to you. She's tuning in via Facebook. She says amazing Saints, and some love hearts there as well. We've got a comment here from Slick SP on Facebook. He thinks it's going to be a 2-0 Saints win this afternoon. Hitch also getting in touch on Twitter. Hello. He says, come on, you Saints. David Piper said it's not going to be an easy game, but if every player does his part, we could win 1-0 up the mighty Saints. And Alex Dobbins on YouTube, good afternoon to you. They say, come on the Saints, going to be a class game today. Let's certainly hope so. Dean, once again, apologies. I'm quite sure we end up saying this to you every single match day. We were talking about Shay Adams, weren't we? And whether or not Southampton should be looking to exploit, those headers, and as we saw on Wednesday against Bournemouth.
Well, I think he definitely has the ability, and he showed that against Bournemouth. I mentioned the goal we scored against Tottenham. He has the power, definitely. But the goal against Bournemouth was all about his movement and timing, really, and the quality of the cross. So I think he personally has the ability. I think the art is going out the game a little bit. And Southampton are not one of those teams that necessarily put the ball in the box too early. They try to build up the play and keep possession and trying to find a cuter way in of 1-2s and get to the byline to pull it back, really. So I think it's something you can definitely add to your game and bring that variety when you do need to have a different type of performance. But again, with Shea, I think if he can add headers to his game and score 5 or 6 a season, that's when his goal tally will go up, and that will be his improvement. But again, we talk about all the Southampton players, they're all still young, so they've all got improvement in them, but we're just seeing the goal again now. It's a brilliant header. The cross is fantastic, but it's off camera. But Shea's movement, I mean, he's almost heading it before the defender even reacts or responds to it. So it's a brilliant goal for Southampton. Would I like to see it more? Yes, but that's because I played with Ricky Lambert and we would stick the ball in the box as much as we could because he was so effective. But yeah, I think it's something for all teams that they could look at, and more headed goals could be scored.
Absolutely great effort there from Shea. But let's shift the focus now to today's opponents. You were both with us for that fantastic 1-0 win against Arsenal last season. Joe, what are your memories from that day?
Well, firstly, it's always good to be here in person, joining you guys and getting together as a group. So that was the main bonus from the day. And another bonus was a big Saints win. It reminded me of sort of my days as a youngster going to the Dell, the sort of atmosphere, the sort of siege mentality that was built up here. We're seeing it was a day when everything had to go perfect for Saints, and big saves, big defensive performances, and then to get the goal from Jan Bednarak just before half-time, I mean, that was huge and just set the tone for the second half to sit back, soak up pressure. And this is the model I think Saints are going to take today. You know, it's a lot of these Arsenal players are the same, obviously a few key additions over the summer, but largely the same team, and we see him struggling here to break down Saints and that solid back five. Lianco was excellent, Jan Valery put in a shift this day, and you had Brozier up top just kind of leading the line on his own, trying to stretch Arsenal, and Al Yunusi and others trying to support him as best they could. So yeah, the atmosphere was rocking here at St Mary's, and it really felt like, as I said, as a youngster, when you'd go up against these big teams, go to the Dell and not really expect too much. It kind of feels like a similar atmosphere today as well, where you're going to need the fans to be with the players all together, all pushing in the same direction. And if it stays level, like I said, half-time, 60th minute, and then Saints can nick one on the break, it's going to be brilliant. And I love this as well. Shane Long chasing down Ramsdale, he celebrated like it was a goal, and I know Dean and I were celebrating with him as well. So yeah, what a memory, and hopefully more of the same today against Arsenal.
Yeah, a fantastic day for Southampton, Dean. One of the highlights of this season. Conditions are kind of similar. You can see behind us a very bright day. You expecting much of the same?
I hope so, Steve. I hope it's the same result. But like Joe mentioned there, I remember the atmosphere being brilliant. I thought the players, the performance was fantastic. And I've mentioned it a few times, when you're playing the bigger teams, I think your goalkeeper needs to perform really, really well. And Fraser Forster on the day must have pulled out 6 brilliant saves, which he probably didn't have the right to make, really. But it was a really good team performance, and the performance that where all the players bought into it and understood what was needed. We need to play together, we need to have that togetherness, we need to have that spirit, we need to cover each other, we need to defend well, and it was a brilliant performance, and really enjoyed it, like Joe said, being here live, seeing the atmosphere, watching the players celebrate afterwards, what it meant to them, that moment with Shane Long. It's going to need a similar performance today, it really is, and you need a little bit of luck as well, but I think Southampton, coming off a brilliant victory against Bournemouth, will have that little bit of confidence. And what you need to do is take the belief away from Arsenal and give yourself some hope, and then just stay in the game, which Southampton at times this season have been good, and then react from there.
Well, let's look back at another great moment against Arsenal. This has got to be possibly the best ever goal we have scored against the Gunners. I mean, Cuco Martina wrote himself into Southampton folklore with this absolute screamer. And this was indeed his first league start as well, Joe. What do you remember from this stunning goal?
Oh, it's just bonkers, Kenzie. I mean, he has no right to hit it like that from there. And the angles that we see behind the goal, just the swerve, you can see that Arsenal's players just did not expect that at all. I don't think Cuco Martino expected it either. But yeah, it's just one of those moments that you'll always remember as a Saints fan. I think it obviously got the party started early. This is a big 4-0 win in the end for Saints. Massive moment in the season. And when it comes out here and just drops to him, yeah, Arsenal probably saying, go on, have a hit. And then the fact that he did that is just sensational. And if I'm correct, the stats show that was his only Premier League goal he ever scored in his career. So he didn't really need to score another one after that, did he? That's not going to get any better than that. So yeah, watched him closely for Curacao over the last few years, playing in the Gold Cup in the CONCACAF region. He's still been going strong there. So always, as a Saints fan, I'll always have a fond memory for watching him play in those Ronald Koeman teams. And yeah, just look at that angle. I mean, Dean, that's not quite as good as some of the ones you scored, but it's up there, right?
It reminds me of myself, to be honest, Joe. No, I never quite scored anything like that.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
My touch was like that sometimes, I must admit. No, it was a brilliant goal, fantastic goal.
There's a much changed Arsenal team from the one that conceded that goal, Dean. They're top of the table. This is their game in hand over Man City, in front by 1 point so far. What have you made of Arsenal this season, and indeed the job that Mikel Arteta has done with them?
I think the job Arteta's done has been brilliant. I think you have to credit to the owners and the board at Arsenal for sticking with him and believing with him when times were tough. He's got a young team. He's had the chance and had some time to build that. They're really exciting to watch. So credit to them. I think if you look at the stats, they're second in terms of the table, the amount of goals they've scored, but only behind Man City. They've conceded the fewest amount of goals, I believe. So they've performed really, really well. And what's impressed me is going away to Leeds and winning 1-0. The first game of the season would have been the real test at Crystal Palace and winning 2-0. We know they can beat Manchester United. We know they can beat the bigger teams. But it's when they need to dig in and go away to the so-called lesser teams and get results and keep clean sheets. They've been able to do that. So there's been huge improvements, and they just play a brand of football that's really good to watch. They're exciting to watch. Can they sustain it? It's a tough ask because Man City are so good. Me and Joe were speaking about this. It's unfortunate to everyone else that Man City are so good. But I think it's great to see a young manager be given time, implement his ideas, his beliefs, and the players follow him and really respond to it. So they've been great to watch, and I'd love for it to continue, and I'd love for it to win the league, just maybe not today. It'd be nice.
We certainly don't want that to happen, but Man City are really keeping the pressure on, aren't they? After that win against Brighton yesterday, that gap is now just 1 point, so it is close. But Joe, are Arsenal really title contenders?
Still not sure, to be honest, still early in the season, but I think they have to be. When you look around the Premier League and see Chelsea, Tottenham, Liverpool, we've seen kind of chinks in their armour, all of those teams where you think they're probably not going to be in the title race this season. So I think Arsenal are the next best team behind the very, very good Man City team we're seeing right now. But there are some stats that I was looking up, and out of the last 4 teams who won 9 out of the first 10 games of the season, they all went on to win the title. So Arsenal almost under pressure a little bit there to do that, but it's their best ever start to a Premier League season as well, which is kind of crazy when you think about all the great Arsenal teams over the years. But been lucky in my role of NBC to watch them at home against Liverpool and Tottenham in recent home wins, and what I love is the energy. Such a young team, but you've got Gabriel Jesus added into the mix, Martinelli, Saka, obviously Odegaard as well, and Saliba's been a revelation at the back, and Dean mentioned there, defensively they've improved a lot this season and over the last 12 to 18 months, and that was what they needed to do. So they almost have a young core there that can be superstars for the next 5 to 10 years, and I love that they backed Arteta, been very patient. We know that in football, fans and owners and boards aren't patient at all, so to do that when they went through some dark times a few seasons ago says a lot about Arsenal as a club. Edu, the technical director, a lot of love for what he's done with the players they brought in, young players as well. So, yeah, I think Arsenal are the nearest contenders to Man City, but I don't know how close they'll be at the end of the season, because I think their squad still isn't as strong as it should be to sustain a title push, but top 4 finish for Arsenal this season will be massive for them and what their fans will really want to see. So maybe in a couple of years' time they'll be genuine title contenders, but hopefully Saints can put a dent in any title bid they have today.
Absolutely, we certainly hope so. Dean, I know you just touched on it briefly just a moment ago, but I mean, as you say, performing incredibly well, but there's a long old way to go for the rest of the season. How do you rate their chances for their 4th ever Premier League title?
Like Joe said, they're contenders. They really are, because they're winning games and they've got into a habit of winning games. They look happy as a group. They look like they're playing together. They're playing for the manager. I've not been to the Emirates for a while, but apparently the atmosphere is incredible.
It's all together, like the fans, management,
which helps,
players.
and they haven't had that. It's been a bit toxic for years. So they've grown the football club, and the challenge they've got a young squad. So when you get setbacks, how quickly can you react to that? So Arsenal are going to lose games, but it's whether you go and lose back-to-back games. That's the interesting to see. But the experienced players are stepping up as well, which is important. But it's the depth of the squad. But it's a unique season. I know they've got players going to the World Cup, but maybe the break will help them. The break being away from Arsenal, away from the training ground, away from each other, to come back and maybe fresh, and they may be able to do it. But unfortunately, Manchester City are just incredible, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But they're the next best, I think.
Well, we've got about 45 minutes till the action kicks off here at St Mary's, so it's time to get your final thoughts and indeed those all-important score predictions. Joe, we'll come to you first. How do you see it going, and what's your score prediction today?
I think it's going to be very similar to last season here, Steve. Saints are going to have to sit back, be patient, pick their moments, and when they do get on the ball, just be really brave and just try and get Aribo, Yunusi, Armstrong on it and just keep it for as long as possible, and then look for Adam Armstrong direct. So I'm going to be positive because we're all positive here. It's great to be here today, and we always enjoy that. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Saints. I can just see it's a weird Saints team this season. I mean, winning here at home against Chelsea, some other disappointing results, still a very young team, still kind of getting their identity together. And the way that Arsenal struggled a bit against Leeds last weekend away at Ellen Road just gives me a bit of hope as a Saints fan. So yeah, I'm going for a 2-1 win for Saints.
Okay, well, we've just been waxing lyrical about Arsenal, Dean, so I'm hoping you hope they don't turn up today.
And I agree with Joe. I'm quite optimistic about today, just because I think it's almost a free hit for the Southampton players, and the pressure is on Arsenal because they're top, and Man City won yesterday. It'd be down to a point. We've got to beat Southampton today, and that can put pressure on the players. So I think Southampton are going to need a little bit of luck, and they're going to need some really good performance individually and collectively. There's going to be some moments that's going to be tough where they're going to give up possession and be camped in their own half, but I think we have the players to get some, well, one goal today, so I'll give away my scoreline now. I think I'm going to go for the same 1-0 Southampton win, and it will just be a brilliant result. And I think we've all got to play a part, the fans, the players, all together today, that will help the players encourage that 1-0 victory.
Dean, Joe, it's a pleasure to have you alongside us. We're looking forward to watching the game with you in your company today. This is the third time, indeed, actually, that Arsenal have travelled to Southampton as Premier League leaders, but indeed they have failed on other two occasions to win either of those matches, which puts us in good stead, I think.
That's a fantastic stat.
It is,
yeah,
isn't it? Well, I nicked that off Joe before the game. But
fair play for being honest, though,
absolutely,
Kenzie,
yeah. Credit where it's due. Let's take a look at what you're saying on social media before we say farewell before kick-off. Ryan Ackland tuning on YouTube. Hello to you. He says it is going to be a hard game today. Patrick, also on YouTube, said he's going for a win for Southampton FC today. Stephen Townsend is also joining us on the live stream. He says this is going to be the biggest test of the season. And a final comment here on YouTube from Daniel. He says a very early morning to you all from Toronto, Canada. Red and white to win 2-1 today. Thank you very much for getting in touch.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks for everyone for getting in touch with us on Saints Live, and also for Dean and Joe for joining us this afternoon. The Gunners, well, they're firing on all cylinders this season and can extend their lead at the top of the Premier League with a victory here at St Mary's, while Saints are back to winning ways and could go up to 11th with all 3 points. Either way, we'll all be back on the final whistle after the game, where we'll get Dean and Joe's reaction and analysis. Enjoy the match, and we'll see you soon.
Bye for now.